Welcome into On Deck. Happy to be here tonight. A lot to talk about with the Braves, a lot more news. Well, then for the past couple of months, lots been going on lately. Finally had a chance to get on here and talk to you guys. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but I wanted it to kind of get to a point where there was a lot to sink my teeth into. And the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is, of course, the Braves and their outfield search. And of course, potentially replacing Marcell Ozuna. So, a lot going on there. I know I'm probably going to have a lot of activity in the chat. I'm going to do my best to take a look at it as much as possible. Forgive me if I don't get to you. I got a lot to get through, a lot of information to get through tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you every option there is that I've seen, that I've heard, probably the top 10 most likely options for the Braves in left field. We pretty much know right now that Acuna and Pache are going to be your center and right fielder at the moment. There are a lot of options that, throughout a 162-game season, you're going to see in that left field. I think that potentially you see a platoon. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But, the funny thing about this is we have found ourselves being Braves fans, Braves observers, in a familiar situation. It was only last year around this time that Josh Donaldson signed to the Twins, and Braves fans were mortified at the idea of the bringer of rain being on another team, and we were questioning who was going to fill that gap. And it was also about the same time that we were scratching our heads at the Marcell Ozuna signing. I don't know if you remember this, but public opinion on Marcell Ozuna at the time was not very great. We saw some exciting moments with him in the postseason, of course, against the Cardinals that year. We knew what he could do, but we weren't sure if he had the potential to actually do it throughout a season. Of course, everything that happened last season, it led to a crazy situation within MLB, but Marcell Ozuna adapted perfectly to it. But a year later, Braves fans are questioning who will fill the gap of Marcell Ozuna, much like we questioned who would fill the gap of Josh Donaldson. The same question of if we'll re-sign him. Remember, because we were questioning whether or not we were going to re-sign Josh Donaldson too. So I see your comment there, JW. I am going to get there with Soroka and Dansby, I promise, but it's going to be a little while. Stick with me. We were questioning what we're going to do with Josh Donaldson if we were going to re-sign him. We ended up going with another guy who we're also going to talk about tonight. And now we're wondering what we're going to do. Are we going to re-sign Marcell Ozuna? Are we just going to pull the trigger and spend the money and do that? Or are we going to go elsewhere? So I think we're in a different search than we were last year. I think last year we were looking for a replacement rather than the future in a lot of ways. And I think that might be different now. But we have a lot of unknown at the moment, because not only do we have an unknown left fielder right now, we really have an unknown center fielder. And I mean that with all due respect to Christian Pache and his defense. We've heard a lot about it, but we don't know what we're going to get out of Christian Pache day to day. I know a lot of you guys are going to bring up Drew Waters eventually throughout this chat, but we don't know what we're going to get out of either of those two guys, and if it's going to translate to the major leagues. We just don't know that yet. So there's a lot of unknown. And on a competing team looking for a World Series championship, it may not be a great move to have two-thirds of your outfield be, frankly, rookies, those being Drew Waters and Christian Pache. I'm not saying it's a terrible fix if that were to happen, but that is the worst-case scenario at the moment, is we bring up Drew Waters and we let Christian Pache have his year. That is the worst-case scenario if you're Braves fans. And it's really not that bad, but there is certainly a lot of benefit in adding a couple of short-term veteran options. So that brings me to the conversation we're going to have. The first guy we're going to talk about potentially signing with the Atlanta Braves, of course, it's going to be Marcell Ozuna. In 2020, you already know he had 60 games played, 77 hits, 56 RBIs, 18 homers, and a .338 average. He led the league in homers and in RBIs. So it is said at the moment that the Braves are unlikely to re-sign Marcell. And in my opinion, I've thought this from the get-go. If there is no National League DH, that may be for the best. It puts a bad taste in your mouth. Trust me, it put a bad taste in mine the first time I said it. But at the same time, it's true. If there's no DH, I don't know if he's the best thing for the Braves at the moment. And by the way, breaking news, Musgrove just went to the Padres. So the Padres are still adding to their depth. Breaking news right here at On Deck. But back to Marcell, it's going to be a tough loss with the offense. But there are others that can help fill the gap. I know everybody's concerned about the protection of Freddie. I think d'Arnaud for this year would be a great person to protect Freddie in that 4-hole if we don't get someone else. 3 or 4-hole, whichever way they design the lineup this year. But I think the Braves are betting on guys like d'Arnaud and Swanson to have continued success from 2020 into 2021. That's got to happen. But I think we're also missing the fact that we have Ozzy Albies back. And I know we got him back towards the end of the year last year, but we did not see him for a lot of those 60 games. And that felt almost like a huge free agent signing at the time. So we're expecting him to have a huge year this year. I think we have unseen potential in Austin Riley. And I know I talk about Austin Riley a lot. I'm going to talk about him in a few minutes. But the guy's got massive power. Hopefully he can find some consistency in his at-bats, potentially hit behind Freddie and d'Arnaud or amidst the upper part of the lineup, maybe even Swanson. There are a lot of guys that we've yet to see the best of, and I do believe that with a lot of these young Braves. So I will say this is not a knocker or criticism, but I do think it is fair to say that we didn't see a full year of Marcell. He was terrific in 2020, absolutely went off, but we did not see 162 games. I wonder what would have happened had we. I think that's a fair question. Would he have run out of steam? Because he was, heck, he had 2/3 of the Triple Crown last year. I don't think that would have lasted. I think someone would have outdone him eventually. But everything considered, I understand why the Braves aren't running back to Marcell Ozuna. I don't know that I would be rushing back to sign him. Not to mention, he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid very well this year. I think the Braves are exploring other options. And the front office, this is not the first time they've conducted themselves in this manner. They haven't even signed Freddie Freeman to an extension yet. They're probably budgeting it out and figuring out what they need to fix, what they need to get first. And I don't mind that at all. The number 2 option, the one that I've heard so much about, there's a couple here that you guys have probably heard and talked about with your friends, talked about it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Number 2 is going to be George Springer. And this is in no particular order. I'm just basically spitting out what I've seen, what I've heard, and giving you my thoughts on them. But number 2 is George Springer. In 2020, he had 51 games played, 50 hits, 32 RBIs, 14 homers, and a 265 average. Not the same numbers Ozuna put up, but none of these guys are going to be the same numbers Ozuna put up. He had a monster season last year. To expect somebody to come in and repeat that would be a bit unfair. But this is a guy that has been linked to the Braves in the talks that we've seen everywhere. And he is a free agent. And though he didn't have the same numbers as Ozuna, he carried a disenfranchised Astros team. And I don't know if you guys watched him last postseason. He had a chip on him. He had a chip on the shoulder, and he was out to prove himself. And with those players and that organization struggling around him, he carried himself in the best way possible, considering the circumstances. And he managed to play through it and really, I think that's respectable. Obviously, I don't like at all what the Astros did. We've talked about that before. I don't really want to bring it up again. But I think we'd have some backlash amongst the Braves fans, calling him a cheater and things like that. But I think with that negativity on the 2017 Astros team, he's ready to get out of Houston, put it in the past, and move to a competing team. I think Atlanta is a destination spot. I think this could happen. Now, he has come out and said that he wants to go somewhere near Connecticut. Crazier things have happened. People have put that aside before. It may be a one-year deal, but I think the Braves could do this. But if I had to lean a certain way, I think this is a little bit too high profile for Alex Anthopoulos. I think he's a little bit more under the radar, which leads me to the next guy, Jock Peterson. Somebody messaged me on Facebook earlier today. I believe it was Caleb Cox. Yeah, Caleb Cox. Literally, I was writing the draft to this, and I got a message on Facebook asking me to talk about Jock Peterson. Here it is. This is what I think. 2020, Jock Peterson had 43 games played, 23 hits, 16 RBIs, 7 homers, and he only had a 190 average. Now, I've heard a lot about Jock recently. I've done a lot of research on this. I didn't just look at last year's stats. I know that's unfair. But this is a name that has been dropped in my comments section a ton. And I really had to take a look at it before I definitely gave you an answer. I think this is definitely a possibility. He is a free agent right now, and he's there to be picked up. So you don't have to go through the Dodgers. You just have to pick him up off free agency. The only thing that makes me worried is that big-time drop-off last year. Obviously not the numbers he was looking for. He only played in 43 games, batting below the Mendoza line. So if you go back to 2019, the numbers are a lot better, and I think that's a much better representation of who Jock is. 36 homers, 249 average. That's good enough for a lot of people. I don't know if it's what the Braves are going to look for, but if it happened, it would not be the first time that the Braves look to someone to have a bounce-back year. Josh Donaldson is a perfect example. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember vividly the videos of Donaldson out there working on the hit machine with Kevin Seitzer and figuring it out. And then he ended up popping off at the seams. I think the Braves could be that destination for Jock Peterson, and I think it could help the Braves out with their current situation. I think it's a potential move. I don't know that we'll be able to look at the move with a fair look until the end of the season, just because of we don't know what we're going to get. We don't really know what to expect if we were to sign Jock Peterson. But I think it's a potential move. The Braves have looked to this idea of postseason experience. And frankly, in recent years, nobody has more postseason experience than the Dodgers. Jock Peterson has been a big part of that. And Jock, I'm gonna read off some of his postseason stats in a minute. And I don't know if you realize how significant it really is. I'm going to do it in a second, but realize the Braves signed Pablo Sandoval this year. Gave him a postseason roster spot specifically because he'd been to the postseason before. So that's how much they value postseason experience. Last year in the postseason, through 10 at-bats, he batted .400. He had 3 RBIs plus a homer. In his career, Jock Peterson has 9 postseason homers, .272 average, and a .349 on-base percentage. Simply put, the guy is a playmaker. And this could be just under the radar enough to be Alex Anthopoulos' style. And he could pull the trigger and bring him to Atlanta. It has certainly been speculated on recently, and I think it is certainly a move. I do think that is a move. So I'm going to take a break real quick. Atlanta Kid brought up Puig. I did not include Puig in this list, specifically because he hasn't been talked about a lot. I think that is certainly potential. I mean, he was signed last year. The only thing that kept him away was COVID. So I think that is certainly potential. I've done a video on that before. You can go check out all the Puig videos I did last year. They're probably all still relevant. But yeah, I think Puig would be a good fit for the Braves. I don't have a problem with it. I wonder why he didn't get signed by another team once the Braves moved on from him. But it is what it is. I think that Puig would be a solid pickup for anyone, and he's obviously going to have a chip on his shoulder once he gets back in. Jameson Meza, I appreciate that super chat. I do not understand why the Braves are going to arbitration with Dansby Swanson and Mike Soroka. We will talk about that in a minute. It's going to be 20, 30 minutes before we get to it. I got a long show today. I'm only halfway through this list, but we will talk about it. Stick with me. I promise we'll get there. So let's move on. Number 4 is going to be Michael Brantley. This is a guy who's under the radar that I think potentially could get picked up, whether he be a starting left fielder or a bench bat. Probably starting left fielder, I would assume. He had 46 games played last year, 51 hits, 22 RBIs, 5 homers, and a .300 average. Now, the homers were nothing to write home about, but Michael Brantley would be a solid pickup for any team. Obviously, we just talked about George Springer and him wanting to leave Houston. Michael Brantley's got to be in the same boat. He's a 4-time All-Star as recent as 2019, and he's a 12-year veteran, all the experience he needs. He's only 33 years old, though. He is a formidable outfielder. At the plate, his career numbers are respectable and could provide some protection behind Freddie or behind d'Arnaud, much like we talked about Riley earlier. If Atlanta decides that it is the better option to bring him in, it'll be very interesting. I think that this is something that could happen, similar to Jock. I think they're in the same boat in terms of being under the radar and right where the Braves would want to be. And this fits into that Anthopoulos method of not spending too much and getting the desired results. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it could. Number 5, this is a guy who I still don't understand why we didn't bring back, Adam Duvall. I threw him in here because I thought he should be in here. 2020, 57 games played, 45 hits, you know the numbers, 33 RBIs, 16 homers, right there with Ozuna in homers, and a .237 average. Now, the average dropped off. He was a little bit streaky, But there's no doubt Adam Duvall exceeded all expectations last year. This is a guy that I was so surprised the Braves let loose because they had him on arbitration. They could have got him for a good price. I was very surprised. I thought for sure he'd be back. With that said, the only thing I can think of is that the Braves mutually agreed to let him test free agency. Because why would you not want to add this guy to your team, even in a bench role, potentially, if you got him there? If we're worried whether or not the DH will be in the National League, Adam Duvall is the perfect stand-in at left field. So I really question that at the moment. I still don't understand it. I don't know that I ever will. But it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Duvall added to the roster if the Braves get too close to spring training or the regular season without a veteran stand-in. Another reason it wouldn't surprise me is because, frankly, Duvall had a career resurgence in Atlanta. He quietly made his way up through the minor league system. He had a heck of a time doing that, and we all remember seeing the pictures with him and Gwinnett and wondering what he was going to be if he'd ever turn it around, and then he did, and he became one of the most feared hitters in the lineup. So even if he isn't what he was in 2020, he could in theory split time with these other options that are about to pop up in a minute. But Adam Duvall, like I said, exceeded all expectation last year. Nobody expected him to have the year he did. He worked hard. He kept up with Marcell Ozuna in the home run race all the way to the end, only missing it by 2. Some criticized him last year, and I thought it was a bit unfair. They criticized him for being a bit streaky. And a lot of fans wonder what could have been had he been there in the postseason. I know I do. Obviously, that injury kept him out, and that's a shame. But I think he's a guy that has earned a spot. And it would surprise me. It would surprise me very much if he did not sign to another team, or if he didn't have that option. I'm shocked it's gone this long without him signing somewhere, if I'm being quite honest. That brings me to number 6. This is a name that came out today. I don't know how much I view it. I don't know how much I really think about it. Brett Gardner, obviously, veteran player, Yankees. 2020, 49 games played. He's a workhorse. 29 hits, 15 RBIs, 5 homers, and a 223 average. Now, this popped up on my Facebook timeline today in an article or two. I'm sure some of you saw it. And the idea intrigued me. I've always liked the way Gardner plays the game. I've always said a Pete Rose style, just plays very hard. The hustle, the deep at-bats, just playing really hard. Good fielder. And that's something that's a novelty in today's game. The idea of just playing hard, hustling. It's a bit overlooked. And I've always liked it about him. I've always liked that style. And he is the quintessential leadoff man. With that said, I don't think that's what the Braves are looking for. He's a great player, but if I'm making the call, I need someone with some pop that can make things happen day in, day out. Especially with Ozuna leaving. We needed that with Donaldson leaving, and we need it now. So that's where I'm at with Brett Gardner. I don't know if that's what you guys think, but that's kind of where I'm at with Brett Gardner. I had some people text me today wondering what I thought about it. That leads me to the number 7 guy, and this is a guy who some of you guys are going to groan about. Some of you guys are going to be like, yeah, he said it. Johan Camargo. In 2020, Johan Camargo had 35 games played, 24 hits, 9 RBIs, 4 homers, and a 200 average. He struggled a little bit, but Johan is a guy who I've always thought is too good at too many things. And it's a little bit unfortunate. He's an infielder by trade. He battled for third base over the past couple of years with Austin Riley. And ultimately the Braves stuck with Riley. But I think Johan could start for a lot of teams in a lot of positions. And that's the unfortunate thing about him, because when you get a guy like that, you want to use him as a utility. And these past couple of years, especially this past year, that hasn't been seen. The pinch hits, we didn't see any of that hardly last year. And that's unfortunate, because I think that was a contributing cause as to why Charlie Culberson went to Texas, is because he didn't get that time. Who's to say what would have happened this year? But I think the same situation happened with Johan. Johan is a guy that is respected enough at the plate to throw in the lineup at any given time. He's arbitration eligible this season. He's a free agent 2024. He's on the Braves roster. That's why he's in this list. He is on the Braves roster. I think he is one of many guys that can split time in left field, and he gives the Braves a lot of options. But there's been a lot of talk about Riley making that transition to left field. But I think that Johan moving to left field could be revisited and discussed too. I think he is so versatile, and it makes him easy to put that utility label on. But he is a different hitter when he plays every day. I think we can all agree when he plays every day and he's starting, he is a much better hitter, as anybody would, seeing live baseball every day. Anybody would be. I think this is certainly, at minimal, a viable backup option if a 5-star pickup doesn't happen. But that's what I think about Johan. Number 6, similar to Johan, we're going Nick Markakis. Now, Nick Markakis is a free agent, but in 2020, 37 games played, 33 hits, 15 RBIs, 1 homer, and a .254 average. Nick Markakis has found a way to remain on a team that is constantly growing, getting unlimited new talent, and frankly, moving toward that younger generation. And through years of taking 1-year contracts for minimal money, it's a wonder how he hasn't moved somewhere with potential more playing time. And at 37 years old, with not much time left in his career, he sits 712 hits away from 3,000. And without a doubt, that mark is on his mind every time he steps up to the plate, every time he signs a new deal. If he is to return to the Braves, I think it would most likely be in a bench role, splitting time, and I think he'd be a perfect fit for that. And it makes me wonder whether or not they'll do it. He has been more to the Braves than I think they ever expected, stayed longer than they ever expected. He's a Georgia native, and it is doubtful he'll want to go play anywhere else. I think once his time is done with the Braves, that'll be it, unless he goes back to Baltimore again, potentially. I really think after he's done with the Braves, that's going to be it. But I think this could go a lot of ways. The best way I think this could go is that both parties go another year for minimal cash like they've done before, and let him have some pinch hit opportunities and a start here and there. That is the best thing I see out of Nick Markakis. Couple more guys, and then we're going to be done with this list. Let me know so far what you think in the comment section. Comments always help me out in getting this stuff out there. And, of course, tell your friends about this channel. Subscribe to this channel if you're watching this and you're new. I do appreciate it. We're going through the options of Braves replacing left fielders. And I got a couple more, and then we're going to talk about Austin Riley and just the situation surrounding Austin Riley here lately. So, number 7, Ender Inciarte. Ender is... I have to talk about Ender. I'd be ignorant not to talk about Ender as a left field replacement. He's signed through next year. Last year he had 46 games played, 22 hits, 10 RBIs, 1 homer, and a 190 average. It is no secret that I thought Ender would have been a part of some trade by now. He's a valuable outfielder, and that's frankly why I thought he'd be a part of a trade. Defensively, there are very few people I would choose in front of him. On the Braves roster in the past 5 years. There are very few people. Three gold gloves that speak for themselves, but his bat is just not valuable in the lineup. With players like him in today's age, I wish there was a designated fielder, but there's just not. I highly doubt that he will be a starter. I think he could have split time, and I think that's the most likely role for him at this point, off the bench. And that's not a new radical opinion. I'm not telling you something you don't know. But that's what I see out of Ender. And I know he's a fan favorite. He's had some great moments and a good year or two. But he's just not there right now. I don't know that he'll ever be there again. And he's certainly not going to put up the numbers that Marcell Ozuna put. But he could split time. That is an option there. Number 8. And I said this earlier. And I said that this is potentially the worst case scenario. And it's not that bad, I promise. I'm trying to go through you guys' chats for a second. I'll have to catch up on that in a second. But the last one I'm going to talk about is Drew Waters. Again, worst case scenario, and it's a lot better than a lot of other teams' worst case scenario. The only reason this is even remotely a bad thing is because we don't know a lot. We saw Christian Pache last year. We saw moments from him. He had a postseason homer. He did a lot of good things in a short amount of time. But with Drew Waters, you're going to have to trust the Braves organization. And that's something that the fans don't particularly like to do in this role. You have to trust them, and they have to trust themselves. If that happens, if they believe he's ready, maybe he is the guy. But if he hits a point where he is struggling, patience is key. I think you'll at least see a platoon with a veteran, most likely Markakis or Inciarte. I would lean Markakis. So that's where I think on it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll go reading through them at the end of all of what I got to say. I got a lot of news today, guys. So we'll get to it. But tell me what you think. I'll go through it. Super chats will get me talking to you right now, but that is the only thing I can do at the moment. So that is the best thing you can do to get me to be able to respond to you. Jameson, I'm going to get to what you asked about in a few. The Dansby, Swanson, and Soroka. I'm going to talk about the arbitration deal, tell you what I think about it right after this. So, we're just going to start it out like this. Do you remember hearing the rumors about Austin Riley? I know I do. The early stages, the Gwinnett stages. Do you remember the rumbling of excitement among Braves fans that lived around Gwinnett, that goes to the games a lot and have seen him a lot? Stories of homer after homer, article after article were written about him. Babe Ruth-like numbers in the minor leagues. And it happened to be at a time where the third baseman at the time, starting third baseman Josh Donaldson, hadn't really gotten into his stride yet. And as successful as the bringer of rain was in 2019, without a doubt, there was a lot of excitement about the future of this 22-year-old kid, Austin Riley, in Gwinnett. So, even after the season was over and the Braves were considering their options, they chose, again, compared to Donaldson, a kid who barely had any time out of the minors, a month and a half really. They chose him over a former MVP. That's how much they like this kid. That's how much potential they think he has. And you can tell me that the Braves didn't want to dish out the cash on Josh Donaldson. If he was that valuable to them at that time, if he was that needed, they would have done it. I do believe that. I'm not buying this idea that Alex Anthopoulos refuses to spend money. I don't think that is a fair representation of his method. But money is a factor, and Austin Riley is 23 years old now with a whole career ahead of him. He has improved drastically in his ability to hit the slider and swing at the right pitches. Adapting to the major leagues isn't easy. Ask Dansby Swanson, who struggled in his first few years. The pressure builds when you're a highly touted prospect. Sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. And when I hear conversations about bringing in Chris Bryant or Nolan Arenado, I listen to them. But those arguments have never quite made sense to me. I think we made the right choice in sticking with Dansby at shortstop. He may not be the best one in the league, but he fits with the team. He clutches up at the right moments, and I think he'll only get better in the next few years. Honing your craft is something that takes time, especially at the plate, but the raw power that Austin Riley possesses gives him a huge advantage in the future. Not to mention, he's one of your own. He's a free agent until 2026. My advice is to stick with him. I think the Braves are all in on him, and I think the fans, it's time to get all in on him. You can talk about a trade to the Cubs. You can talk about a trade to the Rockies. I don't see it. I don't like it. I don't see it. If the Braves did it, I would not like it, and I wouldn't like it for a long time, even if Riley didn't turn out to be what we thought he was going to. Because I'm not trading 5 more years of inexpensive growing development of a talented third baseman already and a solid hitter for 2 to 3 years of an expensive player. Yes, it will give me a good performance, but he will be gone by the time Riley hits his stride. So that's what we would be trading away. And for what? 1 year winning the World Series? Maybe? Keep in mind, we were 1 game away from beating the Dodgers in the NLCS and going to the World Series and likely winning it. So the Braves are there, and these prospects, these young guys like Austin Riley, only benefit that. So that's what I think about that. I hope you agree. If you don't, I understand, but that's where I'm at with the idea of going to get Chris Bryant, going to get Nolan Arenado, Matt Chapman, whoever you want to throw at me. I'm an Austin Riley fan. I am, and I believe in him, and I think the Braves believe in him. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section as well. I will get to it. I do have a super chat from William Fulgham. Oh, it's about Riley. What about putting Austin Riley in left and signing a third baseman or trading for one? And no, not Bryant. I have heard this conversation, William, and it's not a bad question, but I don't agree. The plays that Austin Riley made in the postseason last year, and I talked about this before, but specifically against the Reds, go watch that game. Forget the diving play at home where he tagged the runner out. Forget that. The amount of hard-hit balls that he picked up and just threw to first that other third basemen would not have been able to handle was amazing. He is a fundamental third baseman. He is not a left fielder. I think that he is the guy at third base. I think he has been raised to be a third baseman. I think that is where he is going to see his best years is at third base. I get the idea of bringing in a third baseman, but with the outfield market right now, I just listed you 10 potential options that the Braves have. I don't think they have the amount of options that they would have at third base. And not to say that they're not out there, they certainly are, but they're expensive. And I think there are a lot of other opportunities in outfield than third base. And I don't want to take away from what this kid can do to put him in left field. We saw what he could do in left field. He was certainly not bad out there, but I would rather him, frankly, hone that craft at third base, get good to go for future years. And I think it says a lot that the Braves trust him at third base. They trusted him at first base when Freddie was out for that short while a couple years ago. You know, I think he's a guy that is going to be good for a long time. And he's got, Sean Sports Card just said Riley has a cannon, and I firmly agree. So that's how I feel about it. I appreciate the question. I appreciate the super chat, by the way. I really do appreciate that. But that's where I stand with that. I've heard that conversation. Trust me, my friends always give me grief about Austin Riley. But I just think he's a third baseman. But I do appreciate your question. All right, so this is what you guys want to hear about, so let's talk about it. The arbitration. What about Soroka and Swanson? As most of you know by now, Minter and Fried signed deals before it led to arbitration last week. Minter, $1.3 million, Fried, $3.5 million. Let's talk about these moves before we get into Swanson and Soroka. I like both of the Minter and the Fried deals. AJ improved a lot last offseason. Of course, he was training with Tomlin, and it was noticed this season. One of the best relievers in the entire bullpen. I don't think there is any reason to expect otherwise in 21. Fried was all or more than what we expected last year. He stepped up to the plate as he should have. Not much to dig in on these deals. I thought both contracts were fair. I thought they made sense. And we'll see what happens when they have to be re-signed again. So what about Swanson and Soroka? Let me make this clear. Both of these guys will be Braves in 2021. All that is happening is their deals are unsettled. They're going to arbitration, and it's just going to be debated about how much money they make this year. That's all that's really happening. Some people would view that as the Braves not valuing them as much. I personally think that's a step too far. With Soroka, there's a lot yet to be seen. He had a lot of time hurt these past few years. His rookie season, last year with the Achilles injury that we all remember. We don't know what he's going to be this year. We don't know how he's going to return. We all hope and pray that he's going to be the Soroka that we've come to know, but I don't blame the Braves in not committing everything there. It's really just a money deal. It's not anything to worry about. I don't think this is going to impact whether or not he resigns in a couple of years. I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. In fact, I think it's smart financially. And I'm sure the Braves front office are more than confident in him returning and being a fundamental part of the rotation for years to come. Swanson, as influential as he can be, does have an up and down progression through any given season. He did last year. He started off really hot, kind of faded off, got hot again. It's just, y'all accuse Adam Duvall of being streaky, but Dansby is streaky as well. Last year was looking like he was going to be MVP for the first couple of weeks, but he started slumping, which isn't uncommon. But I think the Braves have an idea of what they wanted to pay him, and he had a different idea. I think that's as simple as it gets. Not to mention what they're going to have to pay him after next season to keep him, in theory, right? So I think that I think a lot of people are looking too deep in this. A lot of your media is looking for a headline. I think it's a little bit unfair to the Braves organization. And I think if you asked any of these guys, they would probably say the same thing. So they're going to be just as dedicated to the team, whether or not you pay them, $3.7 million or $3.1 million. They're going to play just as hard. All right, so that's all I got to say about that. Jameson, I appreciate the question, but I already had a plan, I promise. Let's talk about this international market opening and the Braves getting this shortstop. Let's talk about that for a second, because that's a little bit more exciting. And if you haven't heard about this, the Braves got an international prospect, Ambiores Tavarez. I hope I said that right. So, who is this guy? I didn't know who he was, so I had to go do some research. This is a quote, he is 18 years old, he's 6'2", 175 pounds, right-handed hitter, and another of a long line of shortstops from the Dominican Republic. Various reports suggest that Tavarez's bat is his carry tool, and his future on defense rests at third base or in the outfield. If you look at his highlights, a lot of them are him playing short, but I think he'll be a more versatile player and be capable of playing multiple positions defensively. He is a young enough and athletic enough to adapt based on the Braves' needs. I don't see him being a trade piece. I think the Braves are really high on him. And you might be asking yourself, this kid's 18, Tyler, why do you think they're so high on him? The Braves committed 96% of the allocated money for the international pool into this one prospect. So the Braves were also cut. We all remember the John Coppolella deal. Everything happened. This is the first time we've got an international prospect since then. So they were also punished this year on a 50% cut. So 96% of that 50% went to this one kid. And that's saying a lot. This is not getting the attention I think it deserves from Braves fans. If you watch this program, you know that I harp on the idea of the time for the Braves is not now. It's now plus 10 years because the Braves have set themselves up for all kinds of success over the next decade. I think this signing is proof of that. I'm not saying there isn't a chance he falls off. Any prospect can. What I'm saying is that the Braves have a lot of faith in him, and it'll be fun to watch him develop. So go check him out. Go watch some of his highlights. Again, Ambiores Tavarez. His name is moving across the screen at some point. Go check him out. Go look him up after you get done watching this. And we'll talk more about him, I hope, in a couple of years. So I'm going to get to some of you guys' questions in a second. This is my last section, and I'm going to talk to you guys directly. But I want to talk to you about something that I think I talk about a little too much, but I'm going to hit it again. Why I'm not worried. I am not worried when it comes to the Braves. For a lot of reasons. The most primarily being the strides I've seen in recent years by the organization, by the team, by the prospects, by the guys that we've called up. Thinking that this is the best we're going to get is ignorant. Considering the minor leaguers that have yet to hit their full potential or even debut in the majors, you have to take into consideration how much preparation and patience has been put in before you're judging one or two moves that may or may not happen, i.e. Marcell Ozuna right now. I'd love to bring his bat back, but if the cost is too high or he doesn't fit, the Braves have all the right in the world to explore other options. I understand fans have their favorites. I was just as upset as a lot of you were when Donaldson left for the Twins, but I trusted the front office had a plan. They proved to be correct. So whether it surfaces in 2021 or 2024, they have the best in mind for the Braves, and you need to have faith in them. I think this organization is one of the best in baseball, and it's only going to get better from here. So that's what I think. Let me get into this chat with you guys before you get so aggravated that you leave. All right, let me see. I got to start from the beginning, so this is going to take some time. All right. Can you explain what's going on, Mike and Dansby? JW, I did that. I appreciate it, though. Braves are still looking for a productive outfielder to protect Freddie Freeman in the lineup. I think they'll find him. Braves should sign me. In XG days, send me your highlight reel. Yeah, I saw that. Musgrove to the Padres. It's gonna be a big deal. Is this Riley or Johan's put up or shut up years? I think more Johan than Riley. I think Riley's going to slowly develop and get better and better, but I get what you're saying. They originally signed Ozuna to be a left fielder. This feels like a bad excuse to not spend money. Sucks being a Braves fan sometimes. Hope they don't miss their window to win a World Series. Sailor Mouth, I hear you. But just remember, did you see any defensive highlights from Marcell Ozuna last year? Because I didn't. I didn't see anything that made me want him out there. He made me nervous out there. I wouldn't want him playing left field in the playoffs, personally. But yeah, I'm leaning out of the list I just read off. I'm leaning Jock. I'm leaning Jock, or I'm leaning maybe George Springer. Those are the two I'm leaning if I had to choose. But I don't know what's going to happen. Alex Anthopoulos always finds a way to surprise me, so it'll be interesting. Padres, I saw that. Pirates receive Hudson Head and Omar Cruz. Okay. DB Cooper, Puig did good in winter ball. Puig is a guy that I think could come out of nowhere. I really do. I really think he could go out of nowhere. Brandon Kirkwood, the sound is not working. I don't think it's struggling for anybody else, bud. But if it is, let me know. Could you get to an update on Melanson and Green? I want them both back. I do not. I don't have an update for you, but I do not. I want Green back. Melanson, I wouldn't mind if he comes back, but I think he's going to want a little bit of extra money. I don't know if I want him in that ninth inning. I really like Greeny. I really think we need to keep the. I really think we need to keep that bullpen strong, but I think we can do better than Melanson. Soroka to arbitration is blasphemy. I don't disagree. When it comes to money, I think that it's hard to see what happens behind closed doors. I think it's hard to, understand a lot of some of these deals. Ozzie Albies, we all heard about that deal and how he was gypped, even though he got millions of dollars for playing baseball. Just keep in mind, these guys are playing baseball for a living. And I'm not saying they don't deserve the money they earn. Just keep in mind, they're playing baseball and making millions of dollars. So, at the end of the day, who's really losing here? We're going to miss Duvall if someone else signs him. I agree with you, Caleb, completely. Earlier in the offseason, I read an article of doing a platoon of Adam Duvall and Jock Peterson, which I'm interested with that idea. I think you get one or the other there. Try to see what you guys go. Trying to find any major questions that I haven't already answered. Yeah, agree that Camargo would do better on the offense of, playing every day and in left field. I know he's got a great arm, but I won't be concerned with his outfield defense, to be honest with you. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that him being in the outfield. I would be more concerned about his offense, his offensive production if he didn't play every day. That's what I would be concerned about. William, I saw your question as a super chat, buddy. I appreciate that donation. That really helps me out. Let me see. Is there anybody else that I missed? Riley is a stud. If Chipper Jones speaks highly of anyone, they're next level talent. Agreed. Pujols as well. Just remember Pujols is working with him too. The arbitration has me seeing red. I don't disagree. We have enough lefties. We don't need Brad Hand. I agree with that. I'd put Riley at third. I would too. Soroka is 75%. Soroka at 75% is better than 90% of pitchers in the league. I don't disagree with that, but I think we have to see how he's going to bounce back from his injury, and I think he'll be paid all the amount that he's going to want next year. They paid Cole Hamels more than Max. Yeah, but maybe they learned a lesson. I don't really have an answer for that. The Cole Hamels deal didn't work out like we all thought it hoped it would, rather. But that's a shame. Why don't the Braves give Drew Waters a shot in left? Courtney Conaway, that is not necessarily out of the question. That is not really that's not gone yet. I think that's worst case scenario. I think that it's if they explore all these options and they don't get anyone and Nick Markakis and it's just not enough. I think they'll give him a shot. But the only thing I disagree with you there is I don't want 2/3 of the outfield being rookies. And I know that sounds like an easy way out, but I just don't want that necessarily for the Braves yet. I would like there to be a transitional period where it's one out and then one in, one out and one in. But if that's not how it goes, it's not the first time it's happened, but that's how I would prefer seeing that going. Do we know anything about Duvall? Tyler, I know as much as you, buddy. I have researched it. I can't find anything out there. I think I missed a question. OHB, I see you. I'm not going to miss you. With Hetch and Culberson gone, should we get a utility, especially considering it would be a full season? Yeah, more Culberson than Hechavarria. Hechavarria really struggled last year in the infield. Culberson, you guys know I like Culberson. He's a guy that can play anywhere, and he's going to be a big loss in the utility role. I hated to see him go. I think Camargo could fill that gap. I think there will be guys that can fill that gap and will do just fine. But Culberson was the perfect utility guy, so I don't know who's going to fill that gap necessarily. We're going to have to wait and see what the Braves got planned. Marcell did have a defensive... Oh, yeah, I remember that, Stellar. Marcell did have a defensive highlight. He robbed a homer. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I might have been a little bit disrespectful there, but we all know that if you were picking a team and you need a defense, Marcell Ozuna is not going to be your first pick. Gold Glove included. I respect him, but he had some plays this year that just scared me. personally. I just don't want him in the field. And I obviously have a point because if he was a good outfielder, he'd already be signed with the Braves, I think. I think that the DH thing really made the Braves do what they're doing. Question about the back end of the bullpen to end the game to get us the wins. I need to know which question is. Do you think... I don't know which question is there, Jameson. I'd want Green to come back. Yep. What's my World Series prediction? The Padres have made a lot of moves. They have done a lot. I think they are a threat. I think the Braves are a threat. I think the Dodgers, they're always a threat on the National League side. On the American League side, the Rays lost a lot. The Twins are getting Donaldson back and could be a force to be reckoned with. But I don't really have a prediction yet. We got to see where the cards fall on what the teams are going to be. We don't even know what half the Braves are going to be at this point. So, there's a lot that could happen that would change my opinion. But those are the teams that I'm eyeballing right now going, oh, okay. The Padres especially, I think the Padres are catching everybody's eye right now and making them wonder what's going on. Do you think the penalties from the international free agent signing scandal? Okay, I see. Do you think the Braves have mostly gone through all the penalties from scandal? Yeah, I believe it ends this year. I think the last penalty from the scandal is a 50% cut on the allocated money this year, and they spent it on that prospect. So yeah, they're pretty much done. On our left fielder options, I think AA should consider more postseason over regular season stats on each candidate. That is what makes me lean towards Jock. Even though he had a down year last year, that's what makes me lean towards Jock there, OHB. I appreciate that comment. Utility could be Marwin Gonzalez. I don't disagree. Bash Brothers, you're always bringing up Justin Turner, I swear. Or somebody in here is always bringing up Justin Turner. Riley left field, Justin Turner third. I don't know if you heard me a couple minutes ago, Bash, but I don't think too highly on the idea of taking Riley out of third. I think you got to leave him there. I just think that's where he belongs. Should we trade Drew Waters? And what would that trade look like, do you think? Well, it depends what you're looking for. He's a left fielder. I think it'd be better off keeping Drew Waters. Unless you're getting a super stud left fielder, I think you're better off keeping Drew at the moment. Things could change. We all love Charlie Clutch and Braves country. We sure do. I think he's going to be missed a lot. I really do think so. I'm about to get out of here, guys. Get your questions in. Because I am about to get out of here. I hope you enjoyed the show. I will clip it up and get it out there for you guys in shorter segments. So you guys, if you missed the rest of this show, you can see it on shorter replays. I'll have it on the channel amidst the next couple of days, probably tomorrow. But stay tuned for that. If you're new here, if you've never been on this channel, I see some new names in that chat. I better have some new subscribers. Go subscribe. Help me out. Subscribers help me a lot on this channel. I give Braves content all throughout the year. I usually start spring training, with regular content. Right now it's kind of hit or miss. Not really a lot to talk about on any given day, but throughout the regular season, I'm pretty much here every day. So go give me a subscribe. Go give me a couple likes. Watch some interviews. I got interviews with all kinds of people. Nuxie Phil Necro just passed away. I got an interview with him from a few years back on the channel. Go check that out if you're new. That's the best starting point I can give you. But I am about to wrap it up. I'm going to read a couple more comments, and then I'm getting out of here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me see. Shane Green and Melanson both brought back. I answered that a second ago. I think yes, but I'm more on the Shane Green trade. Or Shane Green being brought back, rather. Do you think if the Mets sign Springer, the Mets will win the NL East? The Mets have done a lot, too. I don't think they're enough to beat the Braves yet. They're spending a lot of money. If they sign Springer, that'll be a scary thing. Didn't they just get Lindor? Didn't we talk about that the other day? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Personally, I don't think... He wants to move up towards Connecticut geographically. That is closer. But I don't think that's in the cards, personally. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Let me see. Still room for Bauer in the rotation. Y'all know I want a Trevor Bauer so bad. Don't do me like that. You know I want a Trevor Bauer. But no, I think our rotation's set. But all right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys enjoy all the NFL playoffs over the next couple of days and enjoy all the baseball news that will hopefully finally come out this week. And we can all get on with our lives because I have been speculating on it. I've been wondering, researching. Hopefully that'll happen soon. But until next time, until we get to talk again, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you guys next time.